Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Thrive After Sports podcast. If you're joining us on Author Spotlight, thank you for joining us there as well. Folks, I'm here with a good friend of mine. I've only known this woman probably less than a year. I already consider her a great friend and an ally on this journey to help not only athletes, but just people live their best lives. Folks, I'm here with Kim Brady. She's a former soccer player at Cal Berkeley. She's a two-time published author. She is a serial entrepreneur. She's a business coach. The list goes on and on. I'm gonna let Kim give her a formal introduction. But first of all, Kim, thank you for joining me today. Great to be here with you.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see your face. I can't wait for you to come back home and I can actually hug you in person, because I literally have known you for a very short period of time, but I feel like you're my friend for sure. Yeah.
Hey, we're actually making plans to get back to California within the next 5 years or so. Texas is great. We might go to another state soon, but I'm coming back to Cali. Cali's home.
Okay.
So we'll be back. But Kim, I know I gave you a brief introduction. We kind of really only scratched the surface of some of the things that you're up to. But for those of the listeners who aren't familiar with you, can you please give them, how do you introduce yourself to people these days?
I introduce myself by saying my name is Kim. That's how I introduce myself. My name is Kim, and I like people to take that. I do that on purpose because we're very well-rounded, complex people, like everybody is. And so first and foremost, I am a business coach currently. I love helping people transition from their career path into entrepreneurship or from their sport into a career path. I am a former family therapist, so I'm highly empathetic. I've worked with children my entire life in some format. I've been a soccer coach. I give back to the game that raised me, is what I say. And I just invest in people. I just am a person who is of service to other people. So that's what I love to do. I love seeing people shine. That's the best part about being a business coach, is helping them achieve their goals. It's like the best feeling in the world, so. I
love that.
Yeah.
One of the things you said before we started recording that I really liked was that you want to help people create a lifestyle that they don't want to retire from. Mm-hmm. And that really resonated with me and I want to dive into your journey a little bit, because that's going to come full circle to how you got to that place.
Yeah.
But let's just start after graduating from Cal, like towards the tail end of your career. Were you looking at playing professional soccer, or what was it like as your career started to wind down?
I love that question, because I came up in a sport at the time that it wasn't an option to play professionally. Mm. So the intensity and the level at which I competed was all out to try to make the highest level I could. And at the time, so half of the players that were on the original national team for the women's national team were some of my teammates. They were my competitors, people I played against. And so I never considered myself, I knew I was a good athlete. I'd never felt that I was an elite athlete, because I was competing against the best of the best. And when you don't have an option to play professionally, and I didn't make the national team, I made the regional team in my area. The highest I went was regionals. And when you know that you're competing for that spot on the national team through the Olympic development program, and you don't make it, right? I knew college was my summit, right? And so the other part of that, which I also think is a blessing, is that I knew that I had to have a career after sport, which is something that the younger generations are only chasing their sport because they have options as professionals outside of college. They have options now, which I didn't have. And in that, you can get lost in that identity crisis of only being an athlete. And so I struggled with my athlete identity. When I stopped competing, I was like, who am I? And I had that, 25 years ago when I graduated. And I can't imagine what people are facing now when they're being paid to play and they have an injury or they have to leave and they have to transition, right? So I can really relate to that early retirement, because I had to stop playing. And I actually stopped competing my senior year. I had a conflict with the coach. 9 of us were seniors and we left as seniors. He basically lost like half the team. And it was personal decision for each person was different. But I still kept my full ride. I had a 4-year scholarship to play. And I went to every game and then cried when I was home because I knew that I was supporting my teammates, but I left my game at the peak of my game, like my best game I ever played. And then my career was done. And that was really hard. And so finding, a path, and I moved to Michigan. I was like, I can't be here anymore. I moved to Michigan, went to graduate school, and I became a therapist at a ripe age of 25. I was doing therapy when I was 23 years old. And I think that's also really rare, to have your master's degree and to be doing, literally I look like a kid. And the type of work that I did was in people's homes. I've had guns drawn on me. I've dealt with drug paraphernalia. I've had SWAT team arrest me thinking I'm in a drug den. When my client comes out, she's screaming. She's like, "That's my therapist. Don't arrest my therapist." It was really funny, but not at the time when you have guns drawn on you and you're sitting on a curb with your hands handcuffed behind your back. And then they go, "Are you seriously a therapist? You look like you're 12. And I'm like, "Yeah, you can call my dispatch. My client just disclosed that I'm her therapist. This is true. It's a confidential thing." And they literally had to call my agency and go, "Is this kid a therapist?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, she's very good too. Please don't hurt her." So yeah, it's just, I kind of have a non-traditional path. And I think that that's something I've learned to embrace. So yeah.
Yeah, Kim, I want to go back to what you said about the athletic identity. And people have heard me talk, endlessly about that on this podcast. But I think what you said about leaving, not having that senior year, or kind of feeling like you left at the top of your game, I'm sure that really fed into you feeling like there was more for you to do, and that kind of left a hole in terms of the athletic identity, right? I'm sure that played a part in it.
Yeah. And I went after every single thing that I've done with an intensity at which I played. That part of me transitions into everything that I do. I am an all or none person. And I think, when with some of the things that I talked about in my book, of my friend was like, if you don't dive in, you're failing yourself. You're not going to be doing it for you. And he's like, I just think you need to dive into everything that you do. And if you don't, you're not going to fulfill yourself. Right. And so like, that's where the get stuck in stuff comes from. And how do you transition when the schedule? I loved the rigidity of our schedules, right? As college athletes. Plus I worked. So I would go to the gym in the morning and work 5:30 to 8:30 and leave, go to class, go to the training room, go to practice, go home, eat, shower, study, repeat. Right. And so I rebuilt that in my career. In grad school, I had 3 or 4 jobs. I was a grad assistant. I was on the speakers bureau for the LGBTQ community. I was a soccer coach back then, got licensed, and was doing all kinds of things. I was a full-time student. And then I was doing therapy for about 7 years, and I got burned out. So it's that all or none, get stuck in, and then I'm fried. And that's the same thing that we do as an athlete, right? Like, we can't sprint all the time. We have to slow down to speed up. And I think I've struggled with that, of when do I slow down? How do I recognize when I'm burning out? How do I pull back a little bit and just get in the flow and rhythm of a game again, in business or in my professional life, right? So I think that transition and that athlete identity that we have never leaves us. We shouldn't want it to leave us, but how does it propel us forward? And when can we recognize that when it's not working for us in that moment? Right. And I think there's been many times that I've had to change paths, change careers, leave things when things were no longer suited to me. And I've had to reinvent myself so many times that I teach others how to embrace that change now. Right? Is we know it's coming. We know we're going to hang up our boots at some point. We know the uniform is no longer going to fit us at one point, right? We know that our 2 to 3 or 4 hours of training a day gets replaced by work, gets replaced by life, right? It gets replaced, and we don't have that same intensity that we used to have. And so our bodies change, our mindset about who we are changes. I think that those things are really powerful to pay attention to, and to listen to, and which ones work and which ones don't.
Yeah, most definitely. You know what, Kim, one of the things too that I appreciate about your story is that you're one of those people who, I love people who have actually gone through the thing that they're trying to help other people with. And I think we live in a time where a lot of people are trying to coach people on things that they just learned yesterday. versus what they went through from personal experience. So I want to go back to your story for a second, because you talked about that intensity that we have as athletes and how we apply that, but it can lead to burnout if we're applying it to the wrong thing, right? So after 7 years as a therapist, at which point did you know it was time to make a pivot from the burnout? And then how did you decide what your next move was going to be from there?
Great question. So one of my best mentors, we all have them, right? When I was an intern in grad school, my supervisor had hired 3 or 4 interns to work in an environment where we were working with severely mentally ill kids. Okay. So I've worked with abused and neglected children as a therapist. That's my wheelhouse. That was what I saw. I witnessed a lot. And when we were first getting interviewed, she said, and went around the room and said, define success for me. And I was the last person. And each person, you know, when rose-colored glasses, you're going to be in the helper profession doing social work or therapy. You think you can save every kid, right? You think you can save all the people. And they're like, I know that if this kid is successful based on the work that I've done, pat me on the back, I'm successful, right? And she got to me and I said, absolutely not. I can give everything I can. And that child could still fail to thrive, right? That child could still get in juvenile hall and not be successful. But does that mean that I failed as a therapist? I don't think so. I think I will know when I'm successful, when I give everything and I can rest my head at night and still go to sleep saying I gave my best. I always had that as an athlete too. I was competitive to myself more than anyone else. It wasn't about other people. It was like, how can I be the best Kim, the best soccer player, the best athlete? And it was the same way as a therapist. Fast forward to 7 years of doing this kind of intense work. And one of my kids attempted suicide at a high school. And I had just done an IEP and I had sat down with all of the adults to help this child. And we had a plan of attack if there was other suicidality happening, right? And all of the adults failed that kid. They didn't follow the IEP. Instead of calling 911, they called me to get to the high school. This is a problem. She's attempting at school in front of students. And I get to the high school and her lips are blue. I had to perform first aid on my own kid that I was doing therapy for. I could no longer function after that. It was awful. I helped her, saved her life. I spent 12 hours that day getting her what she needed and getting the 911 and getting all this done. And so it was like, I can't rest my head anymore. I'm exhausted. I can't do this thing anymore. And I quit. I literally just was like, I'm done. I hit my wall. I know I did a great job, but I'm done. I can't continue doing this. Packed up my bags, my car, and my cat, drove to Colorado. Not kidding. I hated Michigan as far as the weather is concerned, but, and I was like, I didn't want to stay there anyway. And I couldn't afford to come back home to California. I was on a therapy salary. Right. And so I moved to Colorado, and how I got into other things was, I have a people degree. I kind of need to learn how to make money. Sales sounds good. So I found a sales position, because guess what? Most companies chase after us college athletes. They want our skill sets, but they call them soft skills. It's a big pet peeve of mine. It truly drives me crazy when you chase after the talents that we have, the determination, the discipline, the work ethic, the work rate, the teamwork, the resiliency that we go through, and then you call those things soft. Those aren't soft. They are hard to teach, and we come at them innately. And so that was what I sold myself to. I sold myself to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, because that's who they chase. They chase college athletes, college grads. And I was the first management trainee to go straight into car sales executive. I didn't want to do the rental side. So again, I do things by the beat of my own drum. I change gears, I switch up, and I follow the things that I wanted to do. And I realized that I could make more money and not be bound by the rental side of the business. And so I started selling cars for car sales. And I was also one of the only females in Colorado selling cars. So that was a trip, and worked there for a few years. And then again, an integrity issue. One of my colleagues was stealing, and we reported him, and they kept him and kept the save face type thing. And he was stealing from me. He was stealing from other people. We had him on video, things like that. And they still kept him. And I was like, this person is stealing thousands of dollars and you're still going to keep him. I can't work here. So I quit. I found another job. Like, it's just those things where it's like, I got into sales because it's a people skill. I wanted to learn another skill. And then I started working as an educational recruiter and for non-traditional students, and for avionics and airframe mechanics, building planes, basically, for a technical college that was in Boulder, or kind of Broomfield area, Boulder, just north of Denver. And I did that for a little while. And then I wanted to make more money because the schedule wasn't really conducive to what I wanted. And so I found another job and was a small business consultant. And that's where I fell in love with the small business side of things, was working for a payroll company, a national payroll company. And that pivot. So it was like, I think I have this 7-year itch. So I did like the therapy for 7 years. I did sales for 7 years. And I was working in an environment. I'm sure you've had coaches like this. I've had 90% of my coaches are phenomenal, but the 10% that weren't were awful. And I had that experience with my boss at my last company. So I had phenomenal bosses for the most part at almost every workplace environment that I've worked in. And this one person, she was the worst micromanager and abusive person I've ever worked for, where she would publicly praise me and I was in the top 20% of sales for this payroll company, and then call me on the phone at night and swear at me and tell me I'm horrible. Like literally just this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. And I couldn't explain to other people what was happening. Like, no, she loves you, da, 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 da. And one of my colleagues and I were going to go to the gym. And I got a phone call from this person. I was like, I'm going to put this on speaker. You need to hear this. I guarantee you she's going to rip me apart right now. And she was like, okay. So I put it on, and literally the F-bombs and just swearing at me, telling me I'm a horrible human being and all this stuff. And my colleague was like, I can't believe, how long have you been dealing with this? I go, she's been my boss for 2 years. So I was staying in this abusive work environment, just like you stay in a horrible relationship with an abuser. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. So I reported it and again, she was allowed to stay. Right. And I was like, this is crazy. And when I came home, I was like, I need a break. So I flew home here to California to see my oldest nephew. And he's had a rough life. My stepsister was an addict. She passed away 2 years ago. And he was basically on his own. And I didn't want him to continue being on his own. And I've always helped support him and stuff. And he basically was like, Aunt Kim, you're the one that has literally done everything you've ever wanted. You've been so driven. You've done all these things and you're miserable. And so I was like, you're not wrong, kid. And I quit my job 3 weeks later. And that's how I got into entrepreneurship. Was I just couldn't do that thing anymore. And I think that that's the piece of why I'm able to help others. Like you mentioned, I'm one of the few business coaches that's built a business, right? I see a lot of business coaches out there in our field, in our industry, and they've never built a business. They've only built their consulting business, which still is a business, but they haven't scaled it. They haven't sold it like I did over 10 years. And for me to be able to talk to people about those processes and the stages and the plateaus and how to go through that, I can speak to. And it was like, it's the same thing. I can speak to being so sick of what I'm doing that I just quit and trust myself, that I'm going to bet on myself, that I have the skills, that I know I can learn new things, and that I know I have skills that they're applicable to other jobs and other careers, and trusting myself. And I think that's something as athletes, we get shaken a little bit of who are we when we leave our sport, and we don't recognize and honor all of those successes that we've had are totally translatable into other career paths and into entrepreneurship or into whatever career path they want. And I can speak to that because I've done that a bazillion times. It feels like I'm like 8 chapters into my career paths. I've never done anything more than 7 years. It's like, okay, cool. I have no idea. That's where it's like, I want to live a lifestyle I don't want to retire from. I want to still be creative and curious. And I still want to meet people like you and see where your journey takes you. Like that's what fills me up. So it's that helper in me. That's just like, I'm not done yet. I've got shit to do.
That's right. That's right. Kim, the interesting thing about that, there's a lot that I want to say about what you just shared, but I do want to make sure we get back to your journey and everything you're doing now.
Oh,
the cool thing about it is that although there was a period of time where you were kind of going from thing to thing, just like I was, just like so many people do when they don't have someone in their corner coaching them or kind of guiding them. And I saw this in my own experience. Although I felt like I was going places and leaving and what most people would call a job hopper, just like you were learning skills that apply to everything you do in business and coaching. From like, you have to be a therapist, you have to be a salesperson, right? All that, a recruiter, even you said you were doing recruiting, like all that applies to being a coach. And so the thing that I love about it, and you were really transparent just now, of course, but also in your book, just talking about not settling. Like that was the thing that was really cool to me. Like, and so many athletes who are listening to this right now, nothing against enterprise, nothing against sales roles. Obviously, sales is a great foundation for anything you do. But so many people get stuck in those abusive relationships, like you said, not necessarily even just with a boss or a coach, but just with the role itself. That is an abusive relationship where you're waking up every day doing something you hate and not doing anything to change it. So what I love about your story, Kim, is that you made the move to actually change it and make the pivot and put yourself in position. So all that being said, the question I wanted to ask you, because you built your first business after your nephew basically put you on the spot, right? Which is cool.
Out of the mouths of babes, you got to listen to those kids, man.
Yeah, I love how you really like, I mean, you told us now, but in your book, you go even into further detail. Like, I think you guys are like walking on the beach or something, right?
Yeah.
So he calls you out, which is good. He puts you on the spot, and you made a move to start walking the walk and going into entrepreneurship. But my question is, and I think this would be good for people listening, how did you know what kind of business you wanted to build? Like, how did that part come about?
Yeah, that's something I actually take my clients through this process, because I thought, so my nephew, when we had that conversation, he said he wanted to become a chef. And I was missing California, and I love the coffee shops at Cal. I have to go back to them. I studied in them, right? And so I was like, I want to bring a little California vibe to Denver, right? Like, I want that feeling of like, I could build a coffee shop. My nephew could come, we could create a menu, we could do stuff, we could work together. You know, he could come live with me. I owned my home at the time, and I had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And so I could give him a bedroom and give him his own bathroom, and, you know, just basically help launch him, help raise him, because his parents really never gave him those tools. And so I took on that responsibility as Aunt Kim. And basically I thought I wanted to own a coffee shop, right? I was just like, had this go all in thing, right? And I had already had relationships with my financial advisor, and I already had relationships with other people. And so I started talking and interviewing people who were coffee shop owners. And I talked with people about how they built their bar and how did they do this and this. And so I was totally going at it and was like, Jonathan, come live with me. You can move in, blah, 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 blah. We can do this whole thing. And then I go to my financial advisor. I had a little bit of money saved, not a lot. And she goes, I'm not letting you make this decision. You don't understand what it takes to do a brick and mortar. You're going to be married to it. It's not who you are. You don't want to bring California to Denver. You want to move home. And that's when I talk about the best no I've ever received was, no, Kim, you are not doing that. And listening to the advisor. This is something that is crucial to, if you are hiring people to advise you, like truly advise you, a financial advisor, right? And she understood me well enough to say no. And she's like, I really want you to slow down. I want you to really think about what you want to do. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have a job. Since I was 14, I've been working, always busy, always doing something. Athletes are notorious for doing this. We fill up our day, hour after hour time blocks, right? And I was still doing this as an employee. Every moment of my day was still filled. I couldn't be bored, right? And so I slowed down, and I keep my house clean. I always have. That was the chores that I had to do at home. And as you can see, you're in my kitchen and it's clean. And, you know, like I clean the house and I organize, and I started organizing friends' closets and was just like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I need to stay busy, blah, 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 blah. And so I sat down and I was like, I need to come up with what are the top 5 things that I need if I'm going to build my own thing. What are the things I have to have in order to create the lifestyle I want? Not the job, the lifestyle. You have to design your life. It's your choice. It's not the job deciding your life. It's not the salary you obtain. It's what lifestyle do I want? And so I took the time And I sat down and I took a good old pen and paper, because I'm still old school and I still have notepads everywhere. And I just started writing, what are the things that I find myself doing? What are the threads, the common threads among all of the jobs I've held? What are the things that I'm constantly searching for? Number one is I'm a helper. Absolutely 100% a servant leader, because I was a therapist, I was a teacher, I was a soccer coach, always, always, always helping. So number one rose to the top was I must help others, I must serve others. Another one was I wanted to create jobs for others. I knew I wanted to create a business that I could provide jobs to others. And part of that was so as we know, we are all athletes, injuries occur, right? So I asked myself the question, how can I still have my money work harder than I do if I can't work? If I can't work, how do I obtain money? If I have something, right? So it was like, well, if I hire employees, I could duplicate myself. And if I could step out of whatever I'm doing, employees could still work and I could still get paid. I was single and not dating anybody at the time. So it was like, I needed to create multiple income streams. I talk to my clients about this constantly. You have to have multiple income streams, especially this day and age. And so that was another one that rose to the top. Another one, I hated wearing business suits. Absolutely hate the corporate, picturesque, perfect person. I wanted tattoos and all this stuff. And I was told I couldn't wear certain things. I can't stand that. I mean, the fact that it's so archaic, and you as a Black man know this, there's certain things. I mean, people who of color are being told they can't wear their hair in a particular way as an athlete. It's asinine. And we're doing this and replicating it in corporate America, and I can't stand it. So that was a big one for me, was how do I have a job that I don't ever have to wear the stupid business suit? I wanted to burn it. I hated it. And I was washing cars at Enterprise in a suit. I mean, come on, man. Like the things that we do that say these are professional, that's not professional to me. I couldn't care less. I think it's stupid. Ruining your suit, washing a car, like it's just dumb. So that was one of my things, was like, I don't want to wear a damn business suit, right? I wanted to create my own schedule. I wanted the freedom of doing certain things. And that process of slowing down and writing the top 5 things that I needed, that's how I learned that I could do this cleaning company gig. Because I called a friend who had a cleaning company and was just like, hey, I've got to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. Can I work? Do you want an employee? And this is what I'm doing right now. And she goes, no, I don't want an employee. You have the personality to run your own business. I'll tell you how I did mine. And she doesn't have employees, right? So then I found another person who did, and I started interviewing employees. See this pattern? I interview other people to determine what I wanted to do or not do. And I think that's a skill too, is ask for help. Ask people what they like about their career paths. Ask them what they did to do what you're wanting to do, and ask them if they'll mentor you. And so that's what I did. And she goes, I sat down with her in a coffee shop and said, well, I want to build my business and I want to provide jobs to people. So I'm going to do that. So that's how I got into the cleaning idea. And then over time, I niched down and figured out what my profile was, right? That's how I came to be the most highly educated toilet bowl cleaner you're ever going to meet.
Kim, there are so many things I love about what you just shared. Like the clarity that came from, and here's what I love about it. Not only did you just go old school, like you said, like it's really not old. I got my pen and paper right here. Right? I always got a pen and paper handy.
But I love your approach. Everywhere.
You have to, it's necessary.
Yeah.
But I just love what you said about how before you sat down to make that list, to find that clarity, your approach was, how do I want to live versus what do I want to do? And that approach, that mindset changes everything. Yeah. Because so many people, we're almost taught, like you said, we're almost taught to think about what do you want to do? What's going to be on your business card versus how do I want to live? And having the what you're doing fall under the umbrella of what, or how do I want to live? And what you do falls under that. So good. I think if people just follow that advice alone, people who are in transition or trying to figure out their next move, that could make a world of difference. So that led you to starting, building, growing, scaling, selling, eventually the cleaning business. And I love how you detailed every step of the way, from hiring employees to, in the book, you talked about even things like payroll and just how do you make that work? It's like a masterclass on business, just the book itself. Now, after you sell
That was the
There you
goal,
go.
truly, was I wanted people to be able, like, if they couldn't hire me for my services, they have something tangible in their hands that says, this is how she did it. It's not, I don't just talk about things in an esoteric way. Like, this is what I did. Here's the tools. Go do this, and you can find a way to build your own thing. Like, that's the point of the book, for sure.
Matter of fact, we're going to take a quick timeout. Folks, go grab the book if you haven't grabbed it already. Get stuck in. I got my copy right here. The subtitle is Lessons from the Pitch to Build Your Business. So this is a business masterclass. This is not only just, Kim's journey. Look at this picture on the back. Look how good Kim looks right there. Boom. Look at that. You got to go grab it. And also, Kim, if you're watching this on video, Kim has the book behind her, but she's also a co-author in Forever Athlete. So, Kim, before we're going to talk about your social media at the end. There we go. But
All right.
If people want to grab those books from you, let's just take a quick pause. Where can people check you out and go grab these books right now so they can hear more about this?
KimBradyBusinessCoaching.com.
KimBradyBusinessCoaching.com.
Click on the books tab. You'll get a signed copy from me. I'll send signed copies to you.
There we go. So go check that out. Support Kim, support self-published authors. Make sure you get that signed copy. Check the show notes. All Kim's information will be in there. We'll bring it back. I have yours too, sir. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
I appreciate the love. Hey, we got to support each other.
Lots of nuggets in there too. And shocking, you have people do homework too. You have people sit down and write things out. I love it. I love it.
It's necessary. Matter of fact, since you brought that up, we'll get back to after you sold the business and what happened next. But since you brought that up, how important is it for the clients that you work with, right, as a coach? Mm-hmm. How important is it for the clients you work with to be able to be willing to show up and do the work themselves in addition to your coaching? Can you just talk about that dynamic and how important that is?
If you're not going to bet on yourself, no one else will. You have to believe 100% in what you're doing for yourself. We spend so much time in work or in jobs pleasing bosses, pleasing people, chasing after someone else's dream. All the time. We do this all the time. We're human beings, right? We chase after that. Well, I want this because I want that car, or I'm going to go into that job because it's prestigious, or I want to go do A, B, and C. If you don't bet on yourself, because here's what was funny. People were super stoked about my coffee shop idea, but they weren't super stoked about the cleaning company because they couldn't envision themselves cleaning someone else's toilet, right? And this is the whole thing. You treat your janitor the same way you treat the CEO. I happen to be both, and I'm very proud of it, because you have to be willing to do the work when it's hard. Because I ask my clients this: when the shit hits the fan, are you still going to do that thing that you want to do? When things get hard, are you going to quit? And that's the same mentality of the athlete, right? Like, I love the game of soccer. I loved being a student of the game. Why not be a student of business? What I love the most, I've been a business owner and entrepreneur longer than any other career path I've ever had, and almost as long as soccer, right? Like, by the time I'm done, I will finally have surpassed the one thing that I did for 40 years, which is soccer, right? And that's why I say I want to live a lifestyle I don't want to retire from. I want to create and think about what is important to me and my loved ones, and how do I want to design the life that I want. And the job will come, the ideals will come if you can identify who you are at your core values, your moral code, your belief in whatever that thing is. And I recognized, and I talked about this in my book, what I was craving was team again. So I built my own team with my company. I love soccer as the ultimate team sport. And when I left, I was chasing that feeling of like, I had friends in sales companies and stuff. I have good relationships with people, but I was missing the team. And so I created mine. It was like, I think that's really important, is like, what is it that you love so much about your sport that's translatable off the field or out of the pool, or whether you're an individual athlete or whether you're a team athlete, it doesn't matter. What is it that you're chasing the most? And for me, I wanted to be a part of a team. And so I created that with my business. And I think understanding who you are at your core is really powerful to process. And sometimes that's where the whole slow down to speed up. slow down and look yourself in the mirror and say, who am I? And what am I missing? Where did she go? Where did he go? You know, like, where's that little boy in you that loved being on the football field, right? Where was that little boy? And being able to go, this is what I loved, right? I loved being in a physical contact sport. I wanted to hit people. I hated running track, because what's the point of running and chasing after somebody unless I'm going to hit them? I literally love that part of soccer, right? I absolutely love the physicality of it. And so it was like, how do I create a high touch, high contact team environment with my employees and with my clients? And so I created a company that really was this high-end cleaning company. And some of my friends they thought I was just doing it because I was broke or something. And I was like, I'm building a company, you know, like I like, you're going to have the naysayers. You're going to have people tell you, you can't do it. You're going to have people who have good intentions. They're worried about you because they've read the statistics that most businesses fail in their first 5 years, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, and that's not me, because I refuse to quit on me. And I think that just goes full circle of, if you're a high level athlete, you just don't quit. And that's the same thing. If you're going to go into entrepreneurship, or you're going to go into building something for yourself, don't quit. Just don't quit. Just, I mean, you know, take a step forward, take a step back, learn how to cha-cha and keep going. Like, you just have to believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who don't drag you down. Crabs in the bucket is a real deal. If you are hanging out with people who literally have no ambition anymore, who are sitting there not doing anything and have zero dreams, you need to move them. And you talk about that a lot in your book too, is I don't want to be around people who are not ambitious. Just, I can't handle it. I don't hang out with B average people. I hang out with high level people who are smarter than me, people who are faster than me, people who are bigger than me, people who've done it longer than me, you know. And I don't care how old someone is. I know a lot of younger people who've been doing certain things longer than I have. And I like tap into that brain. It doesn't matter what age someone is, doesn't matter, but surround yourself with people who make you better. That's what we do as athletes too, you know? So it's all replicatable. Everything you do as an athlete is replicatable in business. Everything. I just didn't know that until I did it myself.
One of the things about that, though, I love everything you just shared, but one of the things I really loved is how you said, you know, you just didn't quit. And as cliche as it sounds, you know, people may say it all the time, but really the only way to fail is to not quit. Right. And even when you brought up the business statistics of, what is it, 85%, something crazy, some stupid high number.
It's like the 20% of all businesses fail in their first year, but by year 5, almost all of those businesses that started 5 years prior, it's like 80% don't make it to their 5th year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the thing about it, is like, even if those businesses fail, what they don't tell you is that now you were determined that your business wasn't going to fail. But even if someone starts a business and it does fail, what they don't tell you is that they can go on and start another business, and that business could be successful just because they didn't quit. Right. So I love that you, especially for athletes to hear that, which is the majority of people who tune into the show. I think that's really important to hear.
Well, and there's 2 things. Let go of what doesn't serve you anymore. So let go of old ideas. Let go of friends who treat you like crap, or who aren't going anywhere, right? Let go of certain things, but don't quit on your purpose. Because I think we as athletes, we struggle with when to leave something that doesn't serve us anymore. It's why some of the athletes are, you know, they're failing themselves, because they feel they have to live this perfectionistic thing about being that athlete, right? That if I step away, I'm not enjoying my sport anymore. If I step away, I'm failing myself. No, things happen. At some point, you're going to shift and can no longer do that thing. So those fundamental beliefs of, it's okay to let go of something as long as I don't lose myself in the process. You're not quitting on yourself. You're letting go of something else to make yourself better. I think that's really important, of how we talk to ourselves and how do we affirm the things that we're wanting to do, and not having that negative self-talk that says, I failed. We failed every day. The more you fail, the better you're going to get. Make the mistakes, screw up, get back up and keep going. Doesn't mean you're not going to. The business is hard. Sport is hard. Sport at a high level is harder, right? So the better you become, the more fine-tuned you get, the better business owner you'll be, or the better employee you'll be. So it's just a matter of, you know, what do I want to do and what do I want to learn? That's why I constantly, you know, like you talked about being a job hopper. I love that. there's the whole concept of working at a company for 30 years and working your way up is such a weird thing. It doesn't happen anymore. And so why not create your own path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we talked about the book a little bit, Kim, but I want to bring it back to what had you even decide to start becoming a business coach anyway? And I say that because you already built, scaled, and sold a business. You could have been chilling like, hey, I'm good. I got a business that I got a money machine. You could have kicked your feet up, but you decided that you wanted to help others do what you did. So what was that decision like, and how did you actually get started as a business coach?
So I was always helping my friends who were small business owners. So I was in different networking groups and doing things and wanting to support other people. And a lot of my colleagues and people, because I was in business meetings and business groups, right? And a lot of people would ask me, they're like, I've never met someone who built their own business by themselves with no outside resources or capital. How did you do that? And so people just started asking me, even when I was building my other business, right? And so my friends, when the whole pandemic hit, a long story about that, right? But when the pandemic hit, I signed on the closing of my business on March 15th, 2020. And March 17th, 2020, California shut down complete with a pandemic. So there was, out of necessity, I couldn't just sit in my 800 square foot box. I needed to connect with people. That's absolutely crucial for human beings to not be socially isolated. And I was already doing my business absentee from California for 3 years, which was another reason why I was actually exiting out of having my business, because I didn't just want to sit inside my box. Ironic, huh? And so it was a 9-month arduous process to sell my company. It was the most difficult process. If you buy a house or sell a house, multiply that times 100, and that's what it feels like to sell a business. It's intense. And so when I sold it, I was twiddling my thumbs. I went from 100 miles an hour to 0. No interaction. The gyms are closed. The pools are closed. They closed the beaches. I literally was so isolated. I felt like I was going crazy. And I want to touch on that because the mental health piece of keeping your shit together, you're not going to do it. And people need to understand that it's okay to go through depression and anxiety at a time that there is no book written for this thing called a pandemic. We don't know what this experience was going to be like. We didn't know how long it was going to last, right? And so over the course of the past few years, my friends are like, your skill sets are crazy. You're like this trifecta of a therapist, a soccer coach, and sales, and you built a business. Why are you not doing business coaching? And I was like, never thought about it. And they're like, you've been doing it. You just need to get paid. I'm like, oh. So it was like this aha moment. I was like, I spent all this time it was so focused on selling my company. I couldn't even look up to figure out what I was going to do. So the reiteration, and ironically, when you and I originally spoke, you're like, have you written a book? Why have you not written a book? And I was like, you're not the only one who's told me to write a book. Right. And so at the same time of like, this whole thing, my friends, I literally had a bunch of friends that are like, I love your writing. Why are you not writing? You need to write a book. And hint. And so they're like, figure this out, Kim. You need to wrap all that stuff that's in your head and put it down on paper and teach people how to build a business, because you're one of the only people I know that's done it. And what I found is most of the people that I know have not sold a business. And I don't know if you saw my post. I found the statistics of how crazy it is. Only 17% of entrepreneurs sell their business. That's all. And then realizing the fact that I'm a lesbian and how small that percentage is of lesbian-owned companies, because LGBTQ businesses, over 67% of them are owned by gay men. So it literally is like, I feel like my friend calls me the lesbian unicorn. He's like, I don't know anybody who's done what you've done. You're like the only one that I know who's done that. You did your own capital, your own money, never took a seed of money from anyone. And I teach people how to do that. You don't have to have money in front of you to be able to create a business. And so that's where it all came about, was just out of necessity. And that, again, I'm a servant leader. I like teaching. I love training others to do their own thing. I love seeing kids succeed in sport. I love seeing employees succeed in their goals. I love teaching and training other people to add to their skill sets. Why not do this as a business and life coach, right? Because I speak from the heart, and I can fake my life if I tried. Like, what you see is what you get. Most of the time I'm in soccer sweats, my hair's in a ponytail. You got my hair down today, Taj. I don't even know. But it's like, I just don't know any other way to be. Like, what you see is what you get. And I think that's that, being as authentic to your core as you need to be for yourself. We all deserve to give ourselves that chance, right? And that's where it all came about. So I've been now, I wrote the book in 3 months. And then you asked me to do, you introduced me to Corey for the Forever Athlete. So that was a trip. Being able to like go from one chapter in my book a week, or I was writing 2 chapters a week, and then add the third one to do the 3rd chapter in a week. That was a lot of writing that week, a little brain melt having to do that. But then, and so doing the business coaching and writing and publishing 2 books in 6 months. Pretty, I don't know. I kind of get stuck in. That's where the name of that's where it all comes from. Soccer. It's a soccer phrase.
I've never seen it before, Kim. I mean, I haven't been in the publishing industry for that long, but in the couple of years I have, I've never seen 2 books come together. You know, people have started working on 2 books, but to have them completed in 6 months, you set a record, another unicorn. You're a publishing unicorn now too. So check that out.
That's funny. Yeah. I loved the writing process of my book. I hired a book coach, people. I wrote every word of my book, every single thing. It was not ghostwritten, but I hired someone who is a 25-year journalist who interviewed me every week and interviewed me about the chapter outline. And then I would go write it and send it back to him. And then he would interview me for the next one. So I had a coach who guided me along what the process of writing a book could be. And he actually called me earlier today and he goes, you have 2 more books in there, dude. He goes, you have 2 more books inside you at least. And I was like, okay, well, I need to sell 1,000 books to recoup my investment. So some people start buying some books for me, right? So I'm like, I'm not ready to write another one, but yeah, I'll get there. I'm sure I'll write one. He wants me to write one on what it was like to come out 30 years ago and the process of who I am and how I've done that. And another one, he wants me to write my soccer journey. And I don't know if I'm ready to do that, either one yet.
Yeah. That's with your soccer journey. I think coming out, obviously that would touch a lot of lives, but your soccer journey, you touched on it in the book, but the book is really more so like your business journey. So that is actually a good idea to just detail more of that, especially with what you said about what happened with the coaches and how a lot of your teammates left and all that type of stuff. That might be a great idea. Kim, I hate that we're up on time, but with the time that we have left, we'll have to have you back on. Maybe when you write that 3rd or 4th book, we can do a follow-up episode. But with the time that we have left, number one, I just want to say thank you for coming on and spending some time today. Thank you for all the work. I know I don't think we've been on a video call before until today. Maybe not. Maybe one or two.
We did at one point when we were publishing. We talked for.
That's right. But yeah, just so I can get my acknowledgments in before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you for the work that you do in the world. Thank you for who you are as a human being. So glad we connected, and it's really just the beginning of everything that we're going to build and create together. And please, one more time, I know we talked about it earlier, but just tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to work with you as a coach, if they want to get the books, follow you on social media, all of that, please.
Absolutely. For anybody who's listening, I provide free initial consultations. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to me or to a coach. If you have an interest and want to learn about it, I will talk to you for free to get you started. I am KimBradyBusinessCoaching.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram as Coach KB15. So best way to find me is just reach out, Kim@KimBradyBusinessCoaching.com. You can get on my calendar. We can sit down and we can really hash out if I am the right fit for being your coach. I'd love to.
Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you again. Everybody who tuned into the podcast, make sure you check the show notes. Go follow Kim, show her some love, grab the book. If you need some coaching, hit her up, put some time on her schedule, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Kim.
Thanks, Taj.
Have a good one.
You too.